So we're here today with Jim Dean, brother of Howard Dean. Jim is the chair of Democracy for America and has been in that role ever since Howard went to the Democratic National Committee many, many years ago.
Yeah.
So he's now just a consultant and you're in charge.
I guess so, yeah. Thanks for having me on, though.
Well, we're here at the DFA Campaign Academy, which is this weekend in at Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut. And this is the second year we've done it here in Connecticut. Jim, you come from Connecticut, so we're very pleased to have you and the Academy here.
Well, we couldn't be thrilled. I must say it took me about 6 years to finally get everything going, at least on our end, and but you and a number of other folks really made that possible. I think last year the training here was the best training we had, certainly in terms of the numbers of people we showed up, so
right.
It was a no-brainer to come back, and just thanks for making it happen.
Now, DFA nationally has about 1 million members, people who participate one way or another in the process. What is it, how do you work with those people? What is it that you want to get done with your 1 million member group?
Well, I think first and foremost, we want to hear from them about what's going on in their communities, in their districts, in congressional districts, about the folks that they're supporting, the initiatives that they're supporting, the legislation that's really important, good or bad, because that's how we know how things are going on. And more importantly, that begets a larger group of people who are willing to do quite a bit of work on these. And our job is really one of a network administrator. I mean, that's really what I am. It's really, our job is to help them on what they're doing. Again, either for an electoral process or for a legislative process or something else. So we've been very, very lucky. We get lots of great heads up. There's lots of stuff that happens that we don't even know about. And often very creative, and we get our best ideas from them. So that's the most important thing about those members.
And what are the major initiatives you're working on in 2013?
Well, the one that we just rolled out, which is probably the biggest one, is what we call the Purple to Blue Project, which we're actually going to do in Virginia this year because they have a legislative race. And that is really about doing something about the gerrymandering that's been going on around the country. And our belief is that most districts are aren't necessarily red or blue. They tend to be more purple than anything else. And we think we can turn some of these districts into districts that are led by Democratic legislators. And we want to test that out in Virginia, and we want to take that a lot wider next year. So that's a very important thing. There's a lot of good things that are happening in states on issues like campaign finance reform and climate change. So we're certainly organizing our members around that, or they're organizing us around it to try to get those bills passed. Because when states do these things, then Washington finally comes around and starts to think that maybe they should be doing it also. And then there are, of course, states like Michigan and Wisconsin, and Ohio and Pennsylvania, where there's some bad stuff going on, and we're trying to fight back against that. So we're doing that. Federally, we've been working on gun violence, the gun violence prevention bill, and want to say a big shout out to everybody in Connecticut for leading the way and hopefully changing a few votes in Congress while we do it so that we can get some meaningful federal legislation passed on that. And also we are very committed to protecting Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security throughout this budgetary process. We don't believe in a reduction in benefits, and we're going to fight for that every step of the way.
So DFA is based in Vermont.
Yes.
And Bernie Sanders comes from Vermont
Yep.
and fights for all of those things. How closely do you work with people like Bernie Sanders or other, true progressives that are in the Senate or in the House?
That's been getting better and better every year. We've been very active in the Progressive Caucus, which is some 77 members, mostly in the House of Representatives. It's actually the largest caucus within the Democratic Party now.
Really?
Yes, and they came up with something called the People's Budget last year that they actually were organized well enough to whip count it, and they're going to continue to try to raise their voice, or as we say, build power. So we're working very closely with them. We have also been very fortunate to be able to work with Senator Sanders and some other good senators who are championing the things that are really important to us, and so it's a pretty good relationship overall. We're really have sort of one foot in it and one foot out of the Democratic Party. I mean,
Sure.
we believe we got to push the party to fulfill its values. And those folks, there are a lot of good people that are still helping us. And yes, a lot of those good folks work in Washington.
You spend a lot of time on the road,
Yeah.
meeting with people around the country. What do you do when you're on the road?
It's mostly, I do events like this, the training, which is always great because there are a lot of really smart people at them and here. I spent a little bit of time raising money because we got to keep the lights on and we got a good staff. It's not a big one, but we'd like to pay them and they'd like to get paid. And I spend a lot of time with either individual members or groups of members who are working on things. It's really the only chance we've got to, or I have anyway, to go see them and see what they're doing and understand what their challenges are. So it's a little bit of everything.
How many people are working with you in Burlington?
Well, in Burlington, it's about 14 or 15. And then there's about another 10 or 12 folks that are working around the country. We actually have organizers now,
Right.
About 8 of them around the country, which is very, very helpful. And they're doing a great job. And they're building in some places, and in other places they're just helping groups do what they're really good at doing.
There seems to be a number of organizations on the left. OFA coming out of the Obama group. DFA obviously came out of Howard's operation in 2003, 2004. We have Move On. We have, other groups. Why do we have so many groups? How can they be more effective? How could they be better coordinated?
Well, to go over the last question first, I think the coordination is actually quite good. We do believe strongly in coalitions, locally and nationally, and we have had fantastic coalitions in places like Maine, where we did the marriage equality thing, Wisconsin with labor, and we've worked very closely with all of those groups and many more, and we're just thrilled about that. And we learn a lot from them, and we like to think they learn a little bit from us. I understand that, if you're active in politics, it means you're going to get probably a lot of emails in your inbox from this, and I think that's a downside to this. But I will say one thing. Particularly in the milieu, if you will, of the Democratic Party, which has always been a coalition. I think people like to organize in different ways depending on their preferences. I think they have more choices than they've ever had, and that's a good thing. The other thing that's a good thing about the presence of all of these groups, and I like to think including us, is that you do have to be competing a little bit for the best ideas, the best practices, and the best people. And we're not a top-down organization. DFA isn't. I don't think Move On or Progressive Change Campaign Committee is. Sometimes the Democratic Party gets a little bit like that, and we're there to help them run themselves like any good business in this country is run, which is to have a competition for those ideas and those practices. And I think we can work together and do both at the same time. And at the moment, that part of it is working pretty well. I'm really pretty pleased with the way we're all working together.
Beyond 2013, if your Purple to Blue initiative takes hold in Virginia, what would you expect to be doing in 2014?
Well, if I had my druthers, we would be doing a legislative program in all 50 states.
Okay.
And
that takes a lot of money.
Helping federal candidates run for Congress and try to take back the House. I don't really know where that's going to go. I do know we haven't prioritized the states, but certainly there's some garden spots in there that are A, doable, and B, having major league battles, the rights of women, the rights of people who work for a living, and we need to be there. And I'm thinking specifically here of Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, where I've been spending a lot of time this winter, Pennsylvania, which we definitely should be able to get a new governor in at least next year. But again, you can't do enough of this anywhere. I spent some time in Wyoming. They had a congressional candidate in 2006 and 2008, and a Democrat, a good progressive, who damn near won, came within 1,200 votes of winning.
Wow.
I mean, we can do this, but
Yeah.
it just takes a little commitment and resources, and that's what we're trying to do.
There's been
right
so
now.
much damage done at the
Yeah.
state level since 2010, and the redistricting that happened, the gerrymandering. What's the prognosis for undoing some of that and getting a bit of balance back in the state legislatures?
Well, I'm not naive about the hill to climb here. But let me give you an example. When I was in Michigan, we looked at the districts and we looked at Western Michigan and they said, well, that's all rural, it's all red, and forget about it. Well, the fact is it is rural, it is red, but it also has a fairly sizable Latino population who have been there for generations, are eligible to vote. We've actually begun a Spanish language version of the training that we're doing today. And if we could do this, if we could, or others, it doesn't have to be DFA, could go in and start organizing younger voters who are undercounted in all of these censuses and everything. We may not turn this all around, but we will make it more competitive. And you have to do that. You can't wait until 2020 to make this happen. I'm too old for that anyway. But at the same time, you've got to start someplace. Right. And it's Virginia this year, but you've got to start working on these districts, and you got to do it now. And a permanent field program that activates voters.
And if someone is from outside of Virginia but wants to help, what should they do?
Well, they can certainly go to our website, which is www.democracyforamerica.com. We have a purple to blue tab there that you can click through and see what we're doing and the candidates we're supporting. You can contribute if you wish, but more importantly, we need people's activism. There's going to be a lot of canvassing going on. We actually are getting field organizers on the ground as we speak. And we're going to need some people power to make this work. The two candidates we've just opened up with are in swing districts out by Dulles Airport. They're terrific, Jennifer Boysko and John Bell. There are hopefully going to be about another 8 to 12 candidates that we're going to help. Some of them in districts easier than others, but you've got to compete everywhere. And
that was Governor Dean's message.
Yeah, you absolutely do, and he's absolutely right. I'm a total buy into that. Although I hate to use the word disciple because he is my older brother, but at the same time, you have to do this, and we can make this happen. I think in Virginia, we can definitely get a new governor this year, but more importantly, we can get a legislature that's going to be a lot better than the one we've had that has passed all this horrible anti-women legislation.
It's extraordinary. It really is extraordinary. I don't know what rock some of these people crawled out from under, but it's to see what's happened in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Virginia. It really is disheartening, and we have to fight back.
Well, we do, and the most important thing to remember is that none of this stuff that they've done in any of these states has added one job to the economy or done anything for economic development. It's all been this ideological agenda that is almost irrelevant to most of the voters.
But it seems their motivating force. It's really extraordinary to watch what's happening.
Well, also, let's not forget that in many cases, it's the motivating force of the legislature only.
Right.
The voters in Michigan turned down the emergency financial manager bill. They actually had it vetoed. The bill was null and void, and the legislature went back into a lame duck session and passed another version of it against the will of the voters.
Right.
And we've seen that in type of behavior in a lot of different states.
Right. Well, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And you're deeply involved in it. Thank you very much for the work that you do, DFA, nationally, and let's keep it going.
Yeah, well, thanks for giving us the opportunity again to be here, and we're really grateful to be in a position to try to make a difference, so appreciate it.
I think we will.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim.
Great, thank you.
So we're here with Michael Langenmayr, who is the Political Director of Democracy for America based in Burlington. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How long have you been with DFA?
I have been with DFA now for almost 5 years, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I started off with a temporary position. First off, I was just hired to help out with the campaign, and apparently I did a good enough job that when my position was supposed to expire, they said, we want to keep you around. So they created a new role for me that eventually led to Deputy Political Director and now Political Director.
And how long have you been in that role?
For Political Director, I've been here for about a year.
Okay. What do you actually do? What is your scope?
When we hire new staff, I like to tell them my job title is actually brains of the operation.
Okay.
So as political director, I'm in charge of all strategic direction for the organization. So we have a very large field team with a number of organizers who work with the members directly across the country. On top of that, we also have many automated ways to really try and get member feedback. And as a grassroots organization, it's my job to really take all of that input and choose our priorities and say this is something our members really care about, this is something they're reacting to, this is something that we should be acting on as a national community and not just individually in certain communities.
So the priorities come from the bottom up.
Yeah.
And what are the priorities for 2013?
Well, we are first off focusing on the elections in Virginia. There are very few elections in odd-numbered years, so we're focusing a lot in municipal races across the country, in New Hampshire and Connecticut, other places, as well as the elections in New Jersey and Virginia. And Virginia is really our top electoral priority this year. We just launched a new program called Purple to Blue.
Right,
where
so I want to know more about that.
Sure. So Purple to Blue is, part of our 50-state strategy. We don't have an unlimited budget, so we really can't run this all in all 50 states at one time. So Virginia is a testing ground for Purple to Blue, where we identified districts with great progressive candidates, or DFA members like Jennifer Boysko is one of our first candidates we've adopted into this program. Longtime DFA member, I believe she's even a training alum. She decided to take the plunge and run for state delegate. So we looked at that district, we looked at her, she's a fabulous candidate. We looked at her district and said, this is the sort of district that's close enough that we think DFA can really make the difference and put her over the top. So we're going all in there.
Okay.
And that's the plan for at least 5 districts across the state. There will be more endorsements from more candidates. We'll be focusing on them to really get them from the candidates that everyone says that these folks may not have a shot. We don't really believe that. We think the right candidates with the right training and the right resources can win anywhere. So.
And why have you targeted Virginia, let's say, as opposed to some other state?
Virginia, in part because it's one of few states really holding elections this year, and we want to use this as sort of a pilot program before we expand it going into 2014. And then going into 2014, we're looking at a few different states. No decisions have been made yet, so we're really looking right now as to where we might be able to go with the success of the program this year.
And if I'm a candidate in an election this year and I think that DFA could help me, first of all, what could I do, and in order to bring DFA into the mix? And if you came in, what would you be doing on my behalf?
Sure. So the first thing I want to say is that we endorse candidates up and down the ballot in all 50 states. Not a lot of folks realize that. As a federal PAC, a lot of people think we only endorse members of Congress or people for President of the United States. That's not true. We endorse state house candidates, state senate candidates, city councilors, school board candidates. And in fact, that's where a lot of our work is going to be done this year. So if you're a candidate for office and you think that we can help, go to democracyforamerica.com. The first step is always to just apply for our endorsement, just ask us for help. And that application is on our website. So go there. Our PAC Deputy Kaili Lambe, who you've probably met, is already here.
Yep.
She handles an intake process, schedules a one-on-one sort of, not really an interview, but sort of a one-on-one conversation with you to get a better feel for you, your priorities, your campaign, your district. And we do preliminary sort of background search to see if it makes sense for us to get involved in that way. Then, if we do decide to get involved, it's really up to what we can do there legally. Different states have different laws for different races.
Right.
But we may contribute directly to the campaign if we have that ability. We'll certainly recruit volunteers. We'll open up training resources to you if that's really what you need. We have a very large network of trainers who may be able to offer advice on running a field campaign or raising money for a race that not many people pay attention to, like school board. We can offer a lot of different things for you, but it's really up to you asking us for our help and then saying, and really what we need out of this endorsement is money or training or whatever it may be.
So if I'm running for a selectman position or board of finance or zoning, planning and zoning or board of education, I could actually ask for and perhaps get some direct support from DFA nationally in that race.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how many candidates did you support last year at that kind of level, or are you expecting to support this year?
So last year, and you had to call me on the exact numbers, last year I think we endorsed about 150 candidates, and of that, 70-ish% of them were non-federal candidates. So that's ranging from folks who were running from school board to state senate.
Okay. And how many members does DFA have nationally?
We have over 1 million members nationwide.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and how do you count those? Are they just people on the email list, or are they people who contribute?
Nope.
How's
there are
that
people
done?
who choose to engage with us however they choose to engage with us. So some groups only count members as people who give you money. We don't have that level of criteria. If you choose to engage with us by taking action online, by signing a petition, or by making a phone call, or by even taking action offline, by coming to a local group meeting or volunteering for an endorsed candidate, we consider all those people DFA members, and we want all of their opinions.
Good. Okay, well, you've got a lot of work ahead in 2013. I think the Purple to Blue initiative is a follow-on from Governor Dean and the 50-state strategy.
Yep.
And clearly you're working at the grassroots level in ways that I think most people don't understand. So it's a lot of work that you're doing. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I like to think so.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
And with me today is Monique Teal, who is the training deputy at Burlington for Democracy for America, and she's in charge of this training. Monique, thanks for coming.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We're having a great day so far. It's lunchtime the first day, and you were telling me that the first session that you do today is the one you like best.
Yes.
And why is that?
The first session is, I think, I don't want to say the most important because that would do a disservice to the training, but I think it's the one that everybody needs regardless of what position they have in the campaign, because folks forget that at the end of the day it comes down to who votes and how you turn them out.
And the very first session is a lot of math around numbers.
Yes.
How many people are going to turn out, what your percentages are, what your win numbers are, and some people feel that that's really intimidating, but
yeah, I mean that's part of the glory, I think, of this session is that we demystify it, right? It's not just some random number that a campaign manager is posting on the wall, but it actually comes from real things. It comes from precincts. It comes from people.
And what's been your experience in this? Because you're a field person.
Yeah, I'm born and raised.
Yeah.
So I started running electoral campaigns in college. So my first campaign, I was the campus organizer for Kate Hartwell, who was running for city councilor. And I actually became an electoral organizer because I was an issue organizer. And we needed Kate Hartwell's vote on the city council against arming the Ashland Police Department with tasers. And so she didn't say this exactly, but she pretty much said, if you help me win, as opposed to my opponent who's not on your side, then you're more likely to have this pass. And so I took that and ran with it. I was like, great, all the students are coming out. And so that was the first time I saw the intersection between issue organizing and electoral organizing, and seeing that like I had some real power when it came to getting what I wanted on local government anyway.
Did you win?
We did win.
Fabulous.
Both campaigns, actually.
So how long have you been with DFA?
Good question. I began with DFA January of 2011, and then I left for 2012 to run a congressional campaign, and then I came back for 2013.
And so in addition to what we're doing here in this session, which is a campaign academy, it's a 2-day program, what else have you got on your docket for this year?
A number of campaign academies around the country. That is our bread and butter. And then we also have a program called Purple to Blue, where we are looking to change state legislatures and make them solidly blue, places that we can count on, because you probably have noticed state legislatures across the country are becoming redder and redder, and the impact of it is that we are seeing policies that hurt all of us.
Right.
And so we're going to try and stop it by making sure we have good people in the right places. So we have trainings for candidate and high-level staff in our Purple to Blue states. And so that's next, as well as we have action summits happening, I think, 2 to 3 times a month. And those are smaller trainings. They tend to be focused on very specific issues or specific campaigns. So a DFA group may say, we are going to work on gun violence prevention, but we are not sure where to start. And so one of our field organizers will go to that meeting and actually have a 3-hour training about this is how you set up this campaign, this is a strategy, this is your goal, like all that type of stuff, and actually help them build their campaign.
How many field organizers does DFA have now?
We have 6 now.
Wow.
Yes, it's great. They're doing good work.
And so there's at least, I know there's one here in the Northeast.
Yes.
Max Stahl, and he's based out of Boston, I believe.
He is.
And then last year we had a young woman come with the training, Labitza,
Yes.
and Labitza is down in Washington.
She is. I don't know the name of her region. She's Pennsylvania over to Washington, down till Virginia, and then over some more.
And where else do you have to train?
We have the South. The South, I think, is right now our biggest region because it goes from Texas all the way over to Florida. Wow. So it's a pretty good chunk. We have the West Coast, the Midwest, and the Rocky Mountain.
Okay. And if somebody wants to get a training program from DFA, what do they have to do?
Well, you can submit an application through the website. I think it's just a couple questions long, and it's mostly so we can see what you're about and what you're doing. Or you can just call the DFA office, and that's just as easy.
In Burlington?
In Burlington, yes.
Okay, and we'll put that number up on the screen.
Sure. Great, thank you.
All right, well, thanks so much for coming, and we're having a great time. I think it's a beautiful day. It's a lot of good turnout, and we're going to learn a lot.
Great, thanks, John.
Thank you. So we're here with Kaili Lambe of Democracy for America up in Burlington. She is the Deputy PAC Director of the organization, and she works with a lot of the political things that are going on. Kaili, welcome.
Thanks, John. Great to be here.
And what was your role here in the training?
I led a session yesterday on digital organizing and using online tools to augment your campaign through fundraising, volunteer recruitment, and getting your message out to voters.
And what's your background?
I came to DFA 2 years ago as a political campaign manager, running a lot of our issue campaigns and working on online programs like our Network Station Scholarship Competition, our Grassroots All-Stars Competition, and just general online work in that capacity. And since November, I've been working as our PAC deputy, so I run our endorsement program, recruit candidates, vet candidates, and work closely with them once we've endorsed them.
So I've talked with some of your colleagues about the idea of someone who's running locally becoming endorsed by DFA and getting some help from them. So since you're running the endorsement process, can you tell me what goes into being endorsed?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our endorsements are very much member-driven. So unlike many other PACs who will look at the viability of a campaign or have some sort of litmus test to see if the candidate is completely on board with them, we really listen to our members on the ground. So what's progressive in Oklahoma is probably different from what's progressive here in Connecticut.
Right.
And so if our members in Oklahoma are telling us this person's really great, we'll take a closer look at them than we might just looking at them on paper. And so that's very much the sentiment that drives our membership, our endorsements across the board, particularly when it comes to primaries. So if our membership in the local area is really excited about a candidate in a primary, that may be enough for us to get into the primary. There's other factors at play, but generally a group's endorsement or a lot of members getting involved is a really good indicator for us.
And how many candidates would you endorse in a cycle?
We don't have a hard and fast number. It depends on the quality of candidates who are applying for our endorsement. It depends on kind of what the cycle shapes up to look like. But I wouldn't say we're going to limit it. It's not, we're going to say that, oh, we've already made 50 endorsements this cycle, so you're out of luck. Right. But, we are looking to endorse good quality progressive candidates who will run grassroots campaigns and share our progressive values. And
what kind of candidates are you looking to endorse, and how do they bring themselves to your attention?
There's a couple different ways we hear about candidates. First is from our members, talking to our RFOs, telling them about the people who they're working with, or candidates themselves coming to campaign academies like this one, and telling us that they're running for town supervisor or something else really local, or even all the way up to Congress or president. That's kind of how we first hear about people, is from our members. We also sometimes hear about candidates directly from the candidates themselves, finding us online as a resource, reaching out to us, giving us a call. Or lastly, we maybe hear about them from our partner organizations. Some of the allied organizations we work with, like Progressive Majority, will tell us, we're working with this kid out in Utah, he's great, you should definitely take a look at him. And so we'll reach out and see if it's a good fit, and they may end up applying for our endorsement. And how long does it take to go through the endorsement process, and what are the steps? It depends on what the timeline is for the campaign. So I typically will expedite a application if it comes in and their deadline's coming up quickly. So we endorsed a couple candidates last week who have an election on Tuesday, so 2 days from today. Wow. And they didn't realize that we did such local endorsements, and so when they found out about it, they wanted to get our endorsement, and even though they had only a few days in which to get the application in, they did. So I moved it along very quickly and took that sort of as a priority over some of the other people who had applied a couple weeks ago but who don't have elections till November. So for them it might take a couple more weeks, but considering that there's these great candidates, these two in particular are running out in Illinois, and local DFA organizers who really deserve our endorsement, I'd put them as a priority over the others. So for them it was a 1 week process, for the others maybe more like a 4 or 5 week process. And once the endorsement is made, how does that become effective? I mean, what actually happens? It varies from candidate to candidate, and it depends on what our local membership looks like, because our priority would be to put boots on the ground. But if that's not a possibility in terms of the resources that we have in that district, then there's other things we can do. We can help with emails, we can help with other ways of getting out, recruiting volunteers. Typically, we will write a PAC check. Although some candidates actually don't want a PAC check, they're not accepting PAC or corporate contributions or something along those lines.
Here in Connecticut, actually, if you're running for the state legislature or for one of the so-called constitutional officers, governor, lieutenant governor, that sort of thing, you're not allowed to accept PAC checks.
Yeah.
But if you're running for mayor or for selectman or board of finance or that sort of thing, then you are allowed. And so it's possible that if GFA were to endorse you, that you actually might be able to give them some money.
Yes, it depends so much on the race and the candidate and the campaign they're running. And we do have to run it by our legal team because not only are there state laws at play, there's local laws oftentimes, and certain
You're
states
a
are
federal
fresh
PAC,
fund states. We are a
right?
federal PAC.
Right.
We do have certain state chapter sort of things where they can, so for Florida, for example, we just endorsed a candidate down there, and they're a fresh fund state, so they can't accept more than a $500 contribution. However, it has to come from the state fund, not from the federal,
right.
federal PAC. So
Right.
we do have a Florida account that's not technically affiliated with any of our Florida groups. It's actually affiliated with DFA National, but it's a separate entity that raises, we will raise money to that account. It never comes through the headquarters.
Right. It's a very complex world you live in.
It is.
And what did you do before you came to DFA?
I worked in the Paul Hodes for Senate campaign in New Hampshire.
Okay.
And prior to that, I worked at Repower America, which is Al Gore's climate initiative,
Right.
working with legislators in New Hampshire to try and pass the American Clean Energy and Security Act.
Okay. So you've been doing a lot on the ground,
Yes.
and now you're working at a national level. Well, it sounds like a lot of fun.
I enjoy it.
Good. It was great to have you here at the training.
Thank you.
We're here with Max Stahl, who is the Northeast organizer for Democracy for America, and he's come along today to help with the training. Max, thanks so much for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me, John.
Tell me what it means to be a Northeast organizer for Democracy for America.
Sure. So what I do, my territory covers New England, the Northeast, and so we go from Maine down to New York.
Okay.
So what we do is help endorse candidates in the region. So one of the big candidates last time was Elizabeth Warren last cycle. We recruited, we trained over 150 volunteers for Warren out there, and a big part of that win. And we also help local groups like your group in Connecticut. So if you guys, if you're working on something, you need help, I'm here as a resource, to get that done. So it's a mixture between those two things, helping the local groups and then helping the endorsed candidates up and down the ballot.
And how long have you been with DFA?
I have been with DFA since May. Actually,
Since last May.
Last
so
May,
you're coming up on
coming
1
up
year.
on a year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And what kind of training do you like to do?
As far as like doing the trainings, so I have done so for the candidates. When we support the candidates, we do this thing called an Action Summit. So we'll get folks together and train them on some of the basics on why it's not just a lot of campaigns are like go knock doors, go make phone calls, and people don't understand why it's important. So what I'm there to do is provide the context, the numbers. This is why why it's important. Quantitatively, this is what's worked in the past. Give people that insight, and so let them know that, and then train them on the most effective way to volunteer. So making sure you're making a connection when you're at the door with people, you're shaking their hands, you're asking in the right way. I go over like how to recruit other volunteers, bring new people into the campaign, and then at the end of these events, we like to have people take an action, such as go out and canvass or go phone call, do something like that. So that's what we do for the Action Summits. I was actually just in New York City, where I was at the Organizing 2.0 conference, which was great, and I did a few trainings there. On one was how to take down the machine, so organizing against the machine. That was very interesting. The second training was how to organize, how to use national activists to work on local campaigns, which I actually have a lot of experience.
Because you're a
doing.
national activist.
I'm a national activist. We do it at DFA, but also on the Obama campaign. After the Obama campaign, I went down to go help Jim Martin get elected to Senate in Georgia. And while he didn't win the runoff election, through some techniques I used, we were able to get 20 people to work as full-time organizers for free.
Wow.
Raise $15,000 to fly 130 people in to come organize and volunteer. and it was a great learning experience of actually doing it. So I like to pass those techniques on to people. And then we did another training on how to win low turnout elections, which went very well as well.
Which in this year, in 2013 in Connecticut, municipal elections, so we have no one running for state legislature or any of the statewide offices. We obviously have no federal candidates. So the biggest elections that are going on here this year are for mayor or first selectman, depending on what town you're in. Boards of ed, board of education, board of finance, planning and zoning, those sorts of things. Generally low turnout elections. So what would be your main tip to people about that?
Sure. So my the headline, so to speak, is that field is most important. Now, what I mean by field is the actual process of doing the voter contact, turning them out. If it's a low enough turnout election, even if you're vastly outspent, if you can actually go and talk to everybody and get your people to talk to everybody, go identify who those supporters are. So you spend all your time at the beginning of the campaign identifying who's going to vote for you, and then in the last part of the campaign, you get out the vote and make sure they actually turn out and vote for you. You can win on field alone.
Right.
So I'd say that would be number one. But for some additional stuff, you wanna do power mapping of the community. So take a minute to think about who are the people in your community who are naturally going to be your allies. Those are people you're going to want to reach out to, bring on your side. Who are the people who might be in the middle? And who are the people who are definitely against you? And you want to know about your opponent. So who is your opponent? Who are they going to be able to line up? That will help inform your strategy, going forward. So I'd say those two things, making sure you have a good field effort, and then making sure you understand the landscape of your race. If that makes sense.
And if I were a Board of Ed candidate somewhere in Connecticut, or a Board of Finance candidate, and I'm just doing this for the first time, but I align with DFA, we have the same values, I've belonged to the organization for a while. Is it possible, A, for me to get endorsed, and B, to get some help?
Absolutely, yeah. So what you can do is you can go to the Democracy for America website, democracyforamerica.com. One of the tabs there is apply for an endorsement. And I'd advocate that everybody apply for an endorsement, because we like to say at DFA, we endorse from president down to dog catcher. So if you're a progressive running for office, we could support you. So fill out the application. At that point, we'll make a determination whether you're the right candidate. A lot of the thing that's important is if folks like you, John, like local leaders, if you're behind somebody, we're a lot more likely to endorse them on a national level. And I think that's what distinguishes DFA from some of these other progressive groups, is that we're truly a member-driven grassroots organization. We listen to our members. It's not something that's coming on from down high. If there's enthusiasm on the ground locally, we like to get involved at a national level. And
then what can you do to help?
Great. So what we can do to help is, once we've decided to endorse, one of the things we can do is donate money. So sometimes we'll write a check, which is helpful. Some other things we can do is, like I described earlier with the action summits, people like either me or someone else, if you're in a different part of the country, can come in and do one of those trainings for you.
So work with your campaign team.
Work with your campaign team. If you're in Connecticut, I have a lot of experience doing working on all different aspects of the campaign. So if we endorsed, I'd be happy to talk with a candidate and figure out look at your campaign plan, see if it's something that makes sense.
Sure.
If that's something you need, help with some fundraising strategy. We also have an email list that's pretty robust. So if you send us an email that you want to send out, of course we'd have to edit it, make sure it's all right, but we can send out an email to our list, either to raise money for you, to get your message out. So that's just a few of the ways we can help. There's a lot of ways.
So going in this election cycle, 2013, I know you've got a special election going on up in Massachusetts. Because John Kerry went to be Secretary of State, so now we have to fill the Senate seat, and then there'll have to be an election after that to fill the House seat. So are you deeply involved in those?
Absolutely. I've actually pushed very hard that we endorse Markey. We did, which is great. And I've been working very closely with their campaign. It's a great campaign, the Ed Markey campaign. They've been able to plug me in with the people on the ground. They're doing things. Like I said, I just did an event for them yesterday, which was able to turn out some volunteers for them. We brought in 15 new people to their campaign. We've been promoting their events coming up, so they had an event on Saturday, actually, in Concord, where he was speaking. We promoted that. There's a debate on Monday. We're helping with that. We're probably going to be, on Wednesday, we're going to be delivering our check, our donation to them. In fact, my local group in Massachusetts is called Progressive Massachusetts, which is an organization that existed, before I got there. But I've developed a good relationship working with them during the Warren campaign, and now they're affiliating with us.
Cool.
And they had a conference a couple weeks ago, and we were able to. They made 500 calls for Ed Markey.
Nice.
At the conference. So we're heavily involved with that race.
And the nuts and bolts of the campaign. So it's not just DFA endorsing and sending out a couple of emails. You actually are involved on the ground.
We're involved on the ground, and again, that's what distinguishes us. Not to say that one model's better than another model, but move on to sort of pull back from that. They've kind of restructured, and a lot of their organizers aren't on the ground anymore. DFA, on the other side, we're expanding our field program. We've gone. We've gone from 4. We added 4 organizers last year, and recently added 2, and now we have 6. We're looking to, in the future, add even more than that. So we are committed to working on the ground,
Great.
As well as helping out with So it's sort of a holistic way to look at a campaign. And Ed's a great candidate who, if you look at his scores on environmental issues, on civil liberty issues,
He used to be at one point my congressman years ago.
Oh, did he? Where are you?
I was living in Groton, Mass at the time.
Cool. I'm in Watertown now, so
Okay.
he's my congressman. So as far as the race to replace him, we've definitely fielded some applications there. That they can't officially start obviously until he's elected, which knock on wood, trying to find some wood there. But yeah, we're involved there. A lot of some of the other candidates we haven't necessarily made an endorsement yet, but some state reps, Massachusetts, and some people applied from Connecticut as well. New York City Council is probably going to be a big deal for us. So we're actually our New York City group, which is fantastic. They are doing their endorsement process right now.
In the mayor's race?
For the mayor's race and for city council
races.
Yep.
So there's a lot going on. It's just because there's no presidential, senatorial, congressional elections doesn't mean that the world has come to an end.
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, another thing that I'm working on, which is, so part of the thing we do at DFA is the candidate work, which is very important, but also the issue advocacy is equally important. So in addition to working with my DFA group in New York, I've done a lot of work with Occupy Sandy. Are you familiar with what they've done?
No, actually a group I haven't heard about.
It's fascinating. So a lot of the more action-based people in the Occupy movement who actually wanted to do something got together after the devastation of Hurricane Sandy.
Right.
And there was a lot of people who they couldn't live in their homes. They weren't getting the resources they needed. There's a big gap there between what people needed and what the government was providing. So they raised over $1 million to provide
good money.
people with housing and all sorts of stuff, and are continuing to do stuff like that. So they're a great group, and work with them, and they know a lot of these folks on the ground that have been affected. So DFA, we're going to be producing a video with some of those folks, with people being interviewed, talking about their stories, about how they're affected, and then tie that into a larger campaign to raise money, or not to raise money, but to have the government give the money that's needed for the victims, because it's terrible. They already weren't getting adequate money, and then the recent sequester, we cut an additional $3 billion. Now, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why are we cutting $3 billion from people that are, hurting out there? Well, the most American thing to do is to help your neighbor. We're not doing that, and then we're not allowing the government to negotiate for lower drug prices with pharmaceutical companies. We're not taxing Wall Street enough. So, I think
so a lot of things need to be fixed in this country.
Absolutely.
Well, Max, you clearly have got a lot that you're doing, and pleased that you are here in Connecticut. Hope that bring you back for some on-the-ground work, and because we've got a lot of really interesting stuff going on.
Yeah, no, we should definitely talk offline about
Terrific.
that.
Thanks again for coming in. Okay.
Yep.
That's our show for this week. We hope you enjoyed it. You can catch all our shows on YouTube by going to youtube.com/user/DFATVNet. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, and you can send comments or suggestions for a show to info@dfa-tv.net. If you'd like to learn more about progressive political action, we meet on the first Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. at the Silver Star Diner in Norwalk. We'd love to have you join us. Remember, change is possible, and you can make it happen. This has been Stream of Conscience. I'm your host, John Hartwell. Thanks for watching.